what's shaking, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Monday Overreaction Show right here on the Orangebloods Texas Football Channel. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Anwar Richardson. What is that shirt you've got on today? Oh, it's a baby face t-shirt.
Yes.
We may have to dive into that a little bit. The show will turn into a baby face conversation.
Well, it would really turn into a Snoop conversation because he headlined on Saturday night, and that in itself would be a fascinating conversation to have. It's the first time I ever saw him in concert.
Interesting. I have seen Snoop in concert, so we may have to trade notes before it's all said and done. Speaking of Snoop, this video brought to you by RogueShop.com. Use that promo code Orangebloods and get your discount for Texas is Home for legal CBD, THC, and so much more. Hey, and while you're at it, do us a solid. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, get notifications, do all that jazz. Mr. Richardson, we're like 8 days away from the start of the Texas Longhorns 2023 season, if you will. It's not that far away. I feel like I show up today on a Monday, and maybe the dead season isn't completely over, but I can sure as hell see the finish line, and it is a wonderful feeling because I've been on Orangebloods this last week, and never have I'm ready. I need it. I need new stuff to talk about. I need the team to do some practices and play in some games, and let's get this thing started because I'm done.
Yeah, well, for me, the past 2 weeks, I basically have been on the road. I feel like Todd Packer, but I've been on the road, Arlington with that anticipation last week, in Nashville with that anticipation. So for me, the ramp up has really been there. And one of the things that all the coaches kind of talked about as relates to like their media days catch was that they loved this time of year because it meant football was just right around the corner. So they just knew, okay, get past media days in another week or so, we're right back at it. So it was kind of, I'm excited, just there's an anticipation, whether it's from a couple of weeks ago from the Big 12 and talking about the football situation there to last week, getting asked a lot of questions about Texas and, the 2023 season and beyond. And all the things that we talk about, all the storylines that we talk about, we are about to put a ribbon and bow on all of them, position battles, all that, and really see what this 2023 team has and unfolds. And probably for the first time in a while, I'm actually looking forward to the start of the season. You know why I haven't always looked forward to the start of the season? Because I haven't expected good things. So because I haven't expected good things, there's always been that dread that comes along with it, that season's getting started, but man, where the loss is going to occur. And I feel like this year's a little bit different.
I'm just excited again that we're here. I think I get excited for every football season. This one, they're all snowflakes. They all have their own unique vibe about them that make them uniquely different. But the further and further we get removed from this program having achieved success to, the thirst for seeing that occur gets even stronger. And I guess that's kind of where I think that's where a lot of people are. You can sense that your thirst is potentially going to be met. And that does dovetail in a little bit into what you were just talking about. There are some seasons when you haven't felt like that was automatically going to happen. There's a chance that this season it does happen. And so,
there's only been one catch, after a Sugar Bowl year. It's been the only season where you ever felt like, at least since I've been here.
Well, every first season of a new coach, it hasn't been met with results that would get you fired up.
That's true.
But those first seasons, there's always delusion. Oh, has there been some delusion? People got mad at Charlie for saying they weren't going to win the national championship.
Yeah. Very mad. Very mad.
Think about if we were doing shows back then, because that slightly predates us really doing shows together. Although we did some post-game shows pretty soon after that. But boy, I can't imagine doing what we do now a decade ago when Charlie had the audacity to say, well, we're just, we're not winning a national championship this year.
Imagine if he would have lowered the standard and said, you know what, we're not going to win a bowl game ever either.
I mean, it's all a bit much.
He was right.
But people were gassed up for Charlie's first season. They were gassed up for Herman's first season. They were gassed up for Sarkisian. And then second seasons come into play. And this is the closest thing that we've seen since 2019, when there's the feeling that it should get done. And if it doesn't get done, it's a bit of a disappointment. And, it does make this season. I still don't know who Texas would be facing in a Big 12. This Big 12 is, I don't know. And that's not all that we're going to jump into some training camp topic in a second, but the uncertainty has me fascinated, Anwar, and that all these years where you'd point to Oklahoma and it was obvious, it's not so obvious in this final year of the Big 12 who the real targets are.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Cameron threw me off. Sorry about that. His
what do we got going on?
Don't look. No, just look at it. Just look at it. His comments just threw me off. So I'm sorry.
Come on, Cameron.
His comments. He was. So anyway, I just keep reading all these comments.
It's not drunk uncle.
So everyone keeps it's so funny because everyone keeps asking about the concert stuff, and so that's good. I'm trying to focus in on you, but then Cameron just.
Do we need to get the concert stuff out of the way?
Do you think or should we keep them hanging on for a little while?
No, I can't have clapping cheeks messages distracting you in the chat.
Okay, I'll do a quick concert review. Let's just
give me the quick concert review.
Three standouts. Al Green, fantastic. He was the closer on Friday night. Amazing. He performed for about an hour or so. Fantastic. Babyface. I did not realize, Catch, how many he did a comment, this compilation of all the songs that he's written, and there was a billion number one songs that he has written for other artists, for just a ton of other artists. And it's been so long, I totally forgot about all that. Crazy. And then Snoop performed on time. Forgot how many good Snoop songs there were. The lyrics to all of them. And yes, all the other things that you guys want to know that I partake in during the show and after the show, yes, all those things occurred. Snoop, of course, but yes, it was a fantastic weekend. I'm smiling. Catch knows if I show up on a Monday, he already knows what time it is. When Catch knows I'm smiling 2 minutes into the show on a Monday, he knows how my weekend went. My man knows.
What was the moment in the Babyface / Al Green concert, right? Because you're getting some baby making music at that point.
Yeah.
What was the biggest baby making moment of those shows?
So for Babyface, it was probably soon as I get home from work. Because that's when he kind of broke it down in there, and he just about 7 or 8 times, he's like, "I'll pay your rent." And they just kept going, "I'll pay your rent." You're like, "Oh snap, you're gonna pay the rent." That was kind of the baby making moment there. And then for Al Green, of course, let's stay together.
Okay. Just making sure.
Yes.
I once did an interview with Al Green where he taunted San Antonio Spurs fans because the Spurs had lost a playoff series to the Memphis Grizzlies. It's one of my favorite moments of radio was Al Green making himself laugh at the trash talk that he was throwing up towards Spurs fans.
That is pretty. That's so random, by the way.
Yes.
And okay, but yes, all right. So concert review is over. I'll give you
That's
more.
so random when we're talking about him.
Well, it is. No, it's not true. No, it was a random comment by Al Green to be talking about the Spurs. I'm assuming you were just talking about music. So it's random that he would just bring that out. That's what I mean.
Well, he was doing an interview with a sports talk radio station. And what was peculiar was that we were from Austin, and he was like, you know what? Y'all are close enough to San Antonio. You can get some too.
Well, he's been everywhere, so he would know.
Yes.
Just that's a fascinating thing. Oh, and then Dave Chappelle bringing out Snoop was pretty cool as well.
There you go.
All right. Concert done. Back to Big 12, guys. Everybody know.
Let me see. I'm just making sure there are no.
By the way, Cincinnati is low-key fire. Have you ever been there?
Yes, once.
How long ago was it, though?
Probably like a decade ago.
Nah, it's nice. It's actually low-key a really cool-ass city. I'm not going to lie.
It's a good time of the year to be in the Midwest. I mean, the Midwest is great. Chicago's the best place in America to be during the summer. You know, it's not a bad – it's not like living in the Sahara Desert, a.k.a. Texas.
So ridiculous. He was hot.
What is it going to be, like 108 this week? Who knows?
Yeah. All right.
Back to Texas Longhorn football.
There you go.
I
forgot the question.
Yeah, exactly. No, look, we were talking about this before the show started. Although I do have a Monday overreaction Longhorn themed topic that we can just remind me later to get my Monday overreaction mini. It's not like a rant, but it is Longhorn theme. But my fear is if we go to it now, we won't ever get onto the topic of training camp battles and the stuff that we kind of talked about projecting a week ahead once practices begin, kind of where our eyeballs will be fixated. What would you like to see? What areas of camp do you want to hear about? Like, those are kind of the main things that we were talking about doing today with camp. Literally 8 days away. We're in single digits. And I think only 40 days until the season starts. So, like, we're almost there, people. Onward for you, week one.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like in previous years, the quarterback position is the obvious answer.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't feel like an obvious answer, does it? Because there's nothing we're going to learn about the quarterbacks in the first week. We know who the starter is going to be. We're not waiting for that announcement the way we have the last two off seasons. So the thing, week one, most interesting, anywhere, any side of the ball for you will be what?
Well, actually, Catch, the quarterback battle is interesting, but not from the starting position.
Correct.
So it's still very intriguing to me, Catch, and especially.
But is that number one?
I don't want to say it's number one, but I'm just saying there is some intrigue that is there because of the name that's involved, which is Arch Manning. Like, I can't ignore that elephant in the room. And look, there was a belief, Catch, that some people believe that he was going to compete for the starting position at the beginning of the season. So there is something to be said of where's Maalik this year? Like, is he the 2? Is he the 3? Like, what does that look like? I'm very, fascinated, to be, quite honest with you. So is that number one for me? Probably not. I have some, if I start thinking of what the number one battle for me, I probably maybe at the guard position. It's not the sexy one, but seeing if Cam Williams is a guy that could kind of go in there like and disruptive and really have a chance to solidify that. Like, we know that the goal of the staff is to be big on this offensive line. They want to be big. Like, we understand that. So I think there's two for me, and we could go into either one of them. So I want to know what's going on at the guard position and how that offensive line really is going to be the shakeup and makeup. What happens with the Jake Majors and stuff. And I'm kind of curious, Catch. I'm kind of curious as it relates to, the last thing I heard before like in summer workouts broke out was that as Isaiah Nayor was really coming along and really getting better and getting better as the summer progressed, as he's finally been able to be back at it. And Isaiah Nayor has kind of been an afterthought for a certain degree for some folks because A.D. Mitchell is kind of like, the new shiny wheel here. And I'm just kind of curious, Catch, as to when we start thinking about who's going to get, who's going to start opposite of Xavier Worthy. What happens, with that, whether it's playing time or who? I'm curious who's going to get more snaps. Like that becomes an interesting one for me as well.
It's funny you should bring up Nayor because I think my number, it's not the quarterbacks per se, although they're certainly involved. It's the wide receiver position for me. Mm-hmm. There has been discussion in this offseason that you take Ohio State out of the wide receiver discussion, the Texas might have the most talented wide receiver room in the entire country. And I've never covered a Texas team where that's true. I mean, we are essentially saying that it is, if you're saying that Texas has a top 3 in the country wide receiver room, and a lot of people are saying that makes it the most dynamic wide receiver room I've ever covered at the University of Texas. They've never had that at the wide receiver position. And a week ago, when I had lunch with a guy that we'll just call a source of mine, the guy that he was raving about was a guy that hasn't really been raved on a whole lot in this offseason. But he's convinced that true freshman Ryan Niblett is going to be a breakout star this year. That the talk behind the scenes is that he's hearing or has heard as much hype about Niblett that he's heard about Jonte Cook. And then you take in Xavier Worthy's comeback tour and A.D. Mitchell's transfer and Isaiah Nayor's return. This is an interesting game at the wide receiver position for who gets the reps. And it's going to be a battle. Somebody's not going to be on the field very much. And that somebody's going to be a really good player. So I'm from Jump Street. I want to see and hear about the wide receiver position. And you mentioned Nayor. I don't think it's Worthy and Mitchell that I'm most interested in, weirdly, right? The two guys that you think will make the majority of the plays. I'm really interested. Oh, yeah, by the way, Jordan Whittington, who emerges truly as the number 3 guy? Because the number 3 guy might really be a number 1 in the making kind of a guy, and we're a year away from that. But I'm fascinated by the wide receiver position, and what does it mean for a position group to be that good?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, Catch, because like you said, there's going to be good receivers who just don't play a lot. Like that's just how it's going to go. I mean, you start looking, like you said, Jordan, we know Xavier Worthy, right? We can count him. He's going to get a lot of reps. We know, obviously, A.D. Mitchell, but like you said, there's still Isaiah Nayor, there's still Jonte Cook, there's still Ryan Niblett, there's still Casey Kane, there's still Jordan Whittington. Like there's still a lot of people, that are there. And we know that Sarkisian wants to stretch the field. We know he's going to call deep plays, Catch. Like that's one thing he don't give a damn. He's going to call deep plays. He's going to call for shots, right? And so he's going to want those guys who can do it. They're going to. I did a show that was on here. I did it with Kyle Henderson from Bama Online. He talked about one of the strong suits for this Bama team was going to be their DBs and how good they are, led by Kool-Aid and others, right? So, when you're going into Tuscaloosa, Catch, you can't just walk in there with just guys, right? You got to be able to say, like, you're playing your best of the best to go against their best of the best on the road at that position. So, that being able to stretch the field, because catch, we know, like, okay, the running back position will be fine to a certain degree, but not expecting Bijan kind of numbers. But you feel like, okay, it'll be satisfactory. But we know in this particular case, like, no, man, like this, he has to have like the most excellent guys, especially week 2. So yeah, catch, and I can't. Whatever lineup you tell me today, catch, I don't know how many of them you would surprise me or throw me off, and I would tell you, ugh, I don't know why that guy's on the field. Like, catch, we've had guys who have played and been on the field over the years, and you felt like they just won it by default, or you always ask yourself, like, is he really the best person, or is he just the person that just has the best? He memorized the plays better than anybody else. It don't seem like that person should be out there. I don't feel like we're going to have that this year.
We got a super chat question that it's kind of like a random, like somebody wants to be heard and they got a beef with me, it looks like. So MJ Allen 77, $20 in the super chat.
Hey, it's worth it.
Hey, we cut into local programming.
Okay.
It's what does B/A mean? By the way,
it must be cell, because A is right next to the S key, so he must have just a typo.
It says, Catch, you've compared Sark and Herman on record, which is an oversimplification. In terms of the cornerstones of running a college football program, recruiting, development, culture, and coaching, Sark is doing a better overall job. Well, Anwar, my instant reaction to that is yes on recruiting, for sure. I mean, I think Steve Sark, although I'm going to have a doozy of a wide receiver, of a recruiting deal here in a little bit that I've saved. I don't know about coaching. I don't really know about culture, I guess. And everybody loves Tom Herman's culture in year 2. Had them playing for a Big 12 championship and winning a major bowl game. And development, I don't know. Like, we're waiting. That's what the season is all for. You can't say it is not an oversimplification to say that Tom Herman, through 2 years on the job as the head coach at Texas, did a better job than Steve Sarkisian. If wins and losses mean anything at all, he went to a Big 12 championship game in year 2. He won a major bowl game in year 2. He had a better record through 2 years. He won 2 bowl games. I mean, I understand what you're talking about with regards to, is he running a better college football program? Well, the talent is better. I think the talent is on campus is more spread out. Right. So you always felt like Herman was recruiting a 7-on-7 kind of program, and you would certainly give Sarkisian and this staff credit for bringing in talent everywhere. Although we're still waiting on the interior defensive line at the highest level. But, I mean, the games matter. And that's why this is such a big season for Sark. It has to start translating to the win-loss record on the field. That hasn't completely happened yet. But, I mean, think about what people were saying about Tom Herman's program going into year 3. We were literally talking about that about 15 minutes ago. Going into the 2019 season, it was hype. The expectations were that Texas was about to go someplace. And that's kind of where we are with Sark at the moment. It's year 3. There's the expectation that Texas is about to be really good, but we haven't seen the quarterback development yet. There are areas of the team where we're waiting for development to occur. So, I'm not being overly hard on Sarkisian, but we can't lie about what happened. Right? We can't lie that year 1 happened. That is a historical artifact. 2021 was a season that occurred. Last season was okay. I mean, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, Catch. This one's a tough one, because I understand. I understand the human nature portion of sometimes you want to like crap on the previous coach in order to build up the current coach, right? And that I saw that when I got here, with Charlie, and it was just like, well, Max guys were soft, and Max guys weren't this, and these Texas players aren't that. He's got to go down to Florida, like all those kind of things, right? And it was a crap on Mac fest, right? But in the reality, Mac Brown in his final season won more games in one season than Charlie ever did, right? But it was very popular to crap on him, when that happened, and then Tom Herman gets in, and then that you see that the Charlie Strong guys, these guys are they're soft, they're not disciplined, they're this and that. So now all of a sudden that Tom Herman has to come in here and he's got to be the crazy Joe, he's got to tell everyone to sit the F up in meetings, and he's now he's the hard guy that's going to get the most out of these guys. And by the way, we were talking after year one, going into that bowl game, how the Tom Herman culture had finally, crept into the locker room, and how everyone had bought in, and Brecken Hager, and the moment that Brecken Hager and Tom Herman has on the sidelines where they're hugging each other, like there was this major breakthrough, right? So that happens. And now you see it again, where it's like, okay, well, Tom Herman wasn't this, and he played too many guys. I'm looking at stuff in the chat. Where was he at for recruiting? And it's like, well, it's just one after another catch. And like at the end of the day, I think the hardest thing for Texas fans to just come to grips with was Tom Herman wasn't a bad coach. Like at the end of the day, he left everyone winning record, 4 winning seasons, and four bowl games victories. Now, and 2 top 5 recruiting classes. So it wasn't like at the time we looked at him and said he was a crappy recruiter. Now there were certain areas that clearly offensive line, defensive line, they could have gotten better. But they also developed guys who got drafted as well. Like, so you got to give them credit for a Connor Williams or a Sam Cosmi, at least get him to the league. So, overall, I get it. I get like, hey, tear down the other guy to build up your guy. And I get it. But I just think we're just having an honest and genuine conversation about like that in the comparison. Tom Herman was not a bad coach. He wasn't the great coach that you wanted him to be. It wasn't bad.
Through 2 seasons, he had a significantly better 1-loss resume than Sarkisian has at this point. I mean, now what happens from here is all that matters.
Correct.
The first 2 seasons didn't define either coach as fate would have it. Didn't help Herman keep his job, and it's not got Sarkisian any kind of hot water. So what happens from here is what is ultimately going to matter most, especially with the SEC move coming in a year from now. But we can't be naive as if what's happened hasn't happened. We're waiting for this better culture, for having players. It's funny. I saw someone earlier. Where did it go? It was, this comment here kind of was interesting to me. It came in from Just a Dude, but having guys that play for you because they actually want to makes a difference. It's like, well, nobody was saying that about Herman going into the 2019 season. So if you're comparing apples to apples, it's this exact moment in time going into Herman's 3rd season versus Sarkisian's. They actually sound very similar. The other thing that those teams have in common, Anwar, is that they included quarterbacks that you were hoping would take the next step. And you wouldn't say that Ehlinger was the problem in 2019. And there were times when he goes toe-to-toe with Joe Burrow when you would far from point the finger at him. But he didn't take the step, right? At the end of the season, he was exactly statistically the same guy that he was the year before, never quite took that final step. Yes. And we're having those conversations about Quinn Ewers. If I tell you that Quinn Ewers, from a passing standpoint, has a season on par with Sam Ehlinger's best season, that's actually not good enough. They need more, and it's part of this conversation. The parallels between those teams, what people thought about the head coaches, expectations, they're not completely dissimilar. Now that took us away from the conversation that we were having.
That's okay, but I think it's a good conversation.
Yeah, no, but I did want to go back, though, to the point that you were making. I just wanted to say, in the event that we don't completely go back, I'm with you about guard, and Anthony Hill's up there for me. So wide receiver, that battle as a whole is interesting because it may be the most talented position on campus. But
well,
what they do with Anthony Hill, because he may not start this season. He may not be ready to be a 3-down linebacker, but they do seem convinced that he's ready to be turned loose and just told to run forward and attack something.
Yeah.
And God, I wonder if he's part of the answer at that pass rushing spot opposite Mr. Sorrell. We have expectations for Mr. Sorrell. We don't quite know what to think of Ethan Burke and Colton Vasek and what's going to happen over there. If Anthony Hill ends up being a guy that is, I don't know, a 5'6" sack guy, then you're talking about a guy that's probably going to be in the conversation for freshman defensive player of the year in the Big 12. And it's the kind of thing that when we start talking about what this defense needs, he might low-key be part of that answer, but maybe not in the way that we were thinking 12 months ago when he was being recruited. And it was thought pure linebacker, the guy that takes over for Jalen Ford. He might still end up being that guy, but this year he might be something a little different.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, Catch, because I think I don't think throughout the offseason, Catch, you ever bought into what was being said about David Benda. And I think we would have stuff, reports on it, this and that. You would say that sounds fine, sounds great in April, but by the time we get to August, all of that's going to change. So it's going to be interesting, Catch, once we get here. And again, they've got a lot of young talent, Catch. So they've got young talent that could potentially make some older guys sit down. And we've seen that happen in previous years under different coaches, right? I mean, there was a linebacker name that was McCullough, I believe was his name.
Jeffrey McCullough.
Yeah, Jeffrey. Very good player, right? Very, very good player. But then by the time those young guys kind of got in there, and the Maaliks of the world, so on and so forth, it was just kind of like, okay, there was time that they kind of moved in a different direction. So I think that's where like a guy like Benda is kind of in a little bit of that danger zone, Catch, where it's like you got a young guy who's coming, and a young guy that they believe is a future that has an NFL future and upon him. So I would definitely be looking at Hill to see, one, Catch, do they just let him loose to start out, or do they just go ahead and give him some time, work with special teams and just make sure he's comfortable, and then eventually he takes over? Like, I'm not quite sure what that trajectory looks like, but it's just a matter of when, as relates to Anthony Hill, to me.
You could also make a case that the Anthony Hill conversation is a conversation that you might have with about 10 guys that are freshmen in this recruiting class, right? I mean,
yeah,
I feel like that's a conversation you're having about Jonte Cook, Ryan Niblett. Like, at some point, if you're an older guy, that's what I was saying, you better be really good. Like, these young pups are nipping at the heels. When does the light switch fully come on for a Maalik Muhammad? And how good are the older guys playing when you're freshmen like him or Derek Williams? When guys just start, if you're, the old saying is, if a young guy's even, he's leaving. It's easier said than done when you're talking about a team that, if you leave alone to some degree, should be very competitive, right? I mean, the decision that Sark and these coaches will have to make is, during a season when they're trying to win a championship, win the Big 12. And it's an older team in a lot of ways, a lot of respects. How soon do you start putting the young guys in there? What is the magic potion for playing time? And going into week 1, like, I don't have the answer to that. Neither will he. Like, that'll be something that gets answered over the course of the season. But you get the sense that the sooner some of those young guys are on the field, it's hard to think the program will be worse for it.
Yeah, I would think so, but it's almost like, Rice is that preseason game, before Bama, and you've got to really know for sure who your guys are. Like, you've got to treat it like, all right, this is it. This is week 4 of back in the day of the NFL preseason. I know it's 3 weeks now.
It's the true dress rehearsal.
Yes, right. And then, this is it, because if you don't know who those guys are, like, you can't go to Bama guessing, right? Because if you're guessing, if you're having to throw guys in and out and you're guessing against Bama, you're probably going to get your butt whooped, right? I mean, that's pretty fair to say.
No, that doesn't feel like the coming out party for the 2023 recruiting class. But, that Rice, look, week 1 will give you a taste. You might see something from week 1 in Anthony Hill that makes you go, well, maybe at some point against Alabama, we give him a series and see what's up. But, yeah, it will be tricky. The lights will be on. And then maybe it's the week after Bama when, everybody gets released in a way. I don't know. It's hard to – that Alabama game, just like a year ago, it's hard to know what it will mean in the context. In the end, the Alabama game didn't mean a lot for last year's team. It was, in the moment, a huge moment of magnitude, but it didn't ultimately define the season. And I feel that way about this year's game too. I mean, this team will have bigger fish to fry, with all due respect to an Alabama team that's still Alabama. But you got to win in Waco and you got to win in Fort Worth, and there will be some games that will probably be more important than the Alabama game. The Oklahoma game is a perfect example. And even that didn't completely define. How do you beat Oklahoma 49-0 and not have that game fully define your season is a bit of a strange one. But it goes to show you that these little games that sometimes you lose end up being the things that take the sting out of moments like that, right? I mean, Oklahoma probably is what we remember the most. If you win in Lubbock and suddenly you qualify for the Big 12 championship game, and then your season, the entire texture of it has a completely different vibe.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. By the way, Catch, I've got one more position battle, because I know you've got, I know you have your Monday overreaction thing that you're holding off on as well. I've been taking notes throughout.
Well, hold that note real quick. I'll come right to it. Hey, we took, I can't remember his name, but we did take the super chat a second ago. Hey, if you want to get your question or comment to the front of the line, like El President, hey, right now.
Look it up on cue.
Right on. Well, I don't mind if I do. No way, Catch. Bama is the measuring stick for the 2023 season. You went. I disagree, El Presidente, but
he's consistent about 12-0 though. He's very consistent about 12-0.
I don't know what to say to that. Like, I don't agree.
Yeah, he just believes that there's, you know what Bama is to me, Catch, I think you're gonna love this analogy. I came up with this when I was in Nashville, when I was doing a bunch of shows. I can't tell you how many shows I was on in Nashville. I came up with this analogy, and I think you're gonna love it. I think Bama, the Bama Texas game is the equivalent of Rocky 1, where Bama won, right? But Texas fans feel like, man, we really had a shot to win. The same way that in Apollo Creed, he won, but everyone else was like, man, you let Rocky get with you, dog. Like, And so he goes into Rocky 2, and everyone's like, man, you got to fight. You got to fight this guy again. And I feel like this is where we're at. Like it's the rematch. Like Rocky 1 happened. It was a little unexpected, and people felt like, man, time just ran out. Like there was an opportunity to win this fight, right? I mean, and you can say there ain't going to be no rematch. There's going to be a rematch. And I feel like that's where we are. I feel like this tier is a Rocky 2, and that's what Texas fans are excited about. How do you like that? How do you like that?
I love that. You know that I would. I would say this.
Okay.
Apollo trained like a mother for that second fight. Better come with it. Now, Rocky came with it. Rocky learned how to fight right-handed in that second fight. He was chasing chickens. He was doing all of the things, but like Apollo was ready for the second fight.
Well,
Rocky won that fight, but it wasn't because Apollo took him lightly. And I think that's one of the – I'm not saying Alabama took Texas lightly a year ago, but that wasn't a quintessential Alabama performance by any degree. Now, late in the game, they made plays. That's what really good teams do. Ultimately, kind of separated what Alabama was a year ago and what Texas wasn't, right? The fourth quarter lights came on, and we got the best version of Alabama. That is one of the things about this Texas team this year. We haven't talked about it a lot, but we talked about it a lot last season. What happens when the fourth quarter starts? Is Texas going to be the team that other teams think they can take into deep waters and drown them because they get tired? Or is Texas going to start winning fourth quarters in big games? I mean, we talk about culture, talk about coaching and development. That is the big question mark for this program. One of them is, how do you close games? Because we can look back to several losses last year where if they just close, Alabama couldn't close. Tech, you couldn't close. You know, Oklahoma State was a game that just got away from them. That was there. I mean, this is a team that plays well in the first half. They often have double-digit leads into the second half. If you go back over the course of the last 2 years, and they're going to be in those positions again this year. More than even the last 2 years, we're going to see Texas with double-digit leads in the second half of ball games. If they finish the deal, they're playing for a Big 12 championship, probably winning a Big 12 championship this year. But if they don't, the finger at that point is only going to be pointed at one person.
I mean, Catch, I think that's the danger of the season, you know. And Sarkisian says he understands what he signed up for. Hope he knows, right? Because Catch,
He knows.
Yeah. Well, they all know until it happens, and then all of a sudden it's a little bit different, right? Because I think Charlie knew, Tom knew, but you don't know what it's like until people turn on you, right? You don't know what it's like when you go from when Mensa is something that people praise you for to that's the thing that people throw in your face, right? Where people praise the binder and then they say your binder's stupid, right? Like it's the things change, right? And attitudes and opinions change. So, so that's the thing. El Presidente is saying 12-0, right? And you've got other people who have high expectations. Like, so anything people think you're 9-3 is a slight party pooper at this moment.
I know.
Right?
I know.
Like that 9-3 would be tremendous progress. That's probably in the Big 12 championship game. And people will look at that like, oh, really? And so there is, to me, the danger of the season as these things, the expectations rise, and Bama's the measuring stick for the 2023 season. Like, I get it. I don't know if one game in week 2 will be the measuring stick, but I get, because to your point, they went toe to toe with Bama last year. Like that, I think we all walked away pretty impressed, by Texas. But then the rest of the season happened. So there's other things that need to occur.
James says that if Texas gets by Bama, the trap game will be Tech 2008 all over again. They don't need to sleep on teams this year. Hang 60 on everybody. I'm sorry, Jamie. I didn't mean to. I said James. Jamie, I would disagree. I still think every road game is potentially a trap game. Get me through a season where Texas doesn't get tripped up on the road by teams it should beat, and I will change my tune. But until they are really consistent, more consistent than they've been on the road, I think you're talking about trap games before you get to the end of the season with Texas Tech.
Okay, well, that would be Iowa State the week before.
Hey, when a member of the national championship team from 2005 jumps in to say Tech isn't a trap game, I'll defer to the man with the ring.
Fair enough. But so Iowa State is before that, catch the week before. That's in Ames, and then TCU is the week before that. So that that's back to back. But like trap would insinuate to me, catch that term. You and I always play with words and they become trap to me means a team that you probably should be that ends up beating you. So like to me, then if you're gonna go to that team, that would be like a Baylor.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Baylor.
I was about to say Baylor is probably the trap game on the schedule.
Yeah, because I'm just looking at the road games. Alabama clearly is not a trap game. So it's Baylor, it's at Houston, it's at TCU, it's at Iowa State. To me, the only one that is going to have a really good coach who can, who David Randall can coach his ass off now. Maybe Baylor, but I don't, and he seemed pretty confident about his team at Big 12 Media Days as well. So, I don't know what he's got cooking down there.
No, I'm with you. Simple as that.
Yeah.
And I think those games, well, you know why? Look, El Presidente, just to go back to finish off that conversation, the reason why the Alabama game won't define the season is because if we get to the first week of December and Texas is in the Big 12 championship game, you won't be able to tell anybody that if they lose that game, hey, you still got Alabama. And it will not want to hear that. Yeah. So, and I would say today, if you were to ask me, you can win one thing, Alabama or the Big 12 championship. You're taking the Big 12 championship. I mean, you can win the Big 12 championship, lose to Alabama, and still make the playoff. Correct. With 4 teams, not with 12. So the most important thing that could happen at this point in this final year is winning, I think, the Big 12 championship game for a reason. We've talked about it so much. It's the last time in a while you might be in a position to truly do so. It's the last year in the Big 12. It puts you in a position. It guarantees you play in a major bowl game. Like it does a lot of things at that point. All you have to do is look at Kansas State season and how suddenly it was redefined by winning the Big 12 championship as opposed to just qualifying for it. All right, on where I got. What was your thing now? Let's go back to the point you're going to make.
Last position battle that will be very interesting to watch will be the running back room, because who starts in the season opener and who's starting by the time you get to that Tech game, I catch it. It's kind of wide open, because if Brooks starts the season as a starting running back, does he finish it? Does CJ Baxter somehow make a run? And does he somehow get in there? Where does Jaden Blue fall and all that? Keelan Robinson, we don't know is going to get his touches, but we heard all offseason about Savion Red and how, how much he's supposed to mean to them. But so I guess he's specialty guy and Keelan Robinson specialty guy. You still got a Trey Wisner that, is on campus, but, so that room is interesting as well. Catch for me is just to see who are the the top 2 guys that leads them, because it's going to be one guy that Sarkisian's history says that will be his guy. Like that's going to be the guy who gets the majority of the reps, majority of the touches. It'll be the number 2 guy. I'm just really curious to see how that one plays out. That's my other one.
It's funny because on paper that you're right. that should be a position. But I kind of feel like, look, there are going to be two guys ultimately that play the most. One of those guys is going to be CJ Baxter. Unless he sucks. I mean, unless he's fumbling and missing protections and just you can't have him on the field. There's no player in that group of running backs that they're more invested in that success would mean more from than their 5-star kid from Florida. They got other 5-stars who are watching the 5-stars. And the one thing you don't want to have is a 5-star sitting on the bench because other 5-stars are like, well, they tell me I'm going to play, but if CJ Baxter can't get on the field, they're like, what are we doing? So he's going to be one of the two guys. So then the question is, do I think anybody's taking Jonathan Brooks' job before the season starts? And I don't. Like, I think they're going to go into that first game and Jonathan Brooks is going to be the starter. Baxter's going to be the backup. But then when the games start, that's when, in theory, anything could happen. That's where suddenly if you're CJ Baxter and you're only averaging 3.5 yards per carry, you can't completely hide from that. But I feel like going into the season, I think the battle's going to be wide open when the first game hits. I don't know if it's going to be completely treated that way in practice. Like I think Jaden Blue is going to be the third guy. I think they're going to hype up their specialty players. But it won't be until we get into the games when we go, okay, this is what it looks like. Or it was like, hey, Jonathan Brooks had 13 carries in the opener and Baxter only had 7, but Baxter had as many yards as Brooks had. And you know what I mean? I feel like the real answers are in week 1. But you're right. It is a fascinating position for all of those reasons. I just don't think in practice the coaches are going to do much more than I think they're going to be consistent there. And then the games are the games.
Okay, perfect. All right. I just want to get that out there. You still got time for your overreaction?
Yeah, I'll sneak it in real quick. We'll probably talk about this tomorrow on the modcast.
Oh, boy.
Longhorns lost a recruit over the weekend. Corian Gibson, defensive back from Lancaster, a guy that I've got ranked number 14 in the state. I did an article. Part of my 10 thoughts from the weekend, I did this. I just kind of looked up all of the major recruiting services and wanted to look at all of the players in the state of Texas that are rated as super blue chip prospects by all of the rating services. In the end, this number will grow probably by 10 by the time we get to signing day, but it's at 16 right now. 16 super blue chips in the state of Texas. 10 have already given commitments. None of those have committed to Texas. The Longhorns, for as well as Sark recruits, they've got to start doing a better job in the state. They've reached a point where even if they get Colin Simmons and Kobe Black some people will just flat out call them 5-stars. Colin Simmons, yes, Kobe Black, close. Even if you get those two guys, it's quite possible that you finish the year only getting 2 of the top 16, 2 of the top 20-ish prospects in the state of Texas. That's not good enough. And it will ultimately be the thing that probably keeps them from a top 5 level class this year. They're recruiting really well out of state. You still got 5-stars like Ryan Wingo looking at you. But ultimately, I think it will be the lack of in-state success across the board that's going to keep this recruiting class from being a top 5 level class potentially. And it really gives you an idea. Last year, Onwar, Texas signed 4 of the top 19, I think it was, prospects from the state of Texas. Not great, but again, out-of-state recruiting really elevating things. To go to 2 in your third year isn't good enough. So winning this season, they have to really start changing the dynamics of what's happening in state, because the Longhorns really, for as well as they're recruiting from 30,000 feet up, right? I mean, nobody would suggest they're not recruiting well, because the totality of their recruiting is really good. But if we just look at what's happening in state, not great, Bob, not great.
So just give me, I know you don't have the numbers off the top of your head, but on average, like what was, when Mac Brown had it going, what was his numbers looking like, if comparatively speaking?
7 or 8 out of the top 10 every year.
Okay.
5 of the top 10 in an average year.
Mm-hmm.
The highest, there are still, the good news is there's still a lot of, 78% of the top 100 is committed. So we've reached a point where guys are given commitments. I think it's like 9 of the top 13 haven't committed. So like that's good. But you'd really only point to 2 guys right now that you think Texas is probable to get, and that's Black and Simmons. Mm-hmm. You tend to think that Terry Bussey is going to go to Texas A&M. There just aren't any other of the guys that haven't decided that are top of the food chain guys this year in the state of Texas. Those are the 2 primary guys for Texas right now. They're not leading with anybody else. Their highest rated commitment on my Lone Star Recruiting Top 100 list right now is Daniel Cruz at number 20. So, there are a lot of people that would tell you I do my rankings to like inflate the Texas numbers. A&M fans would certainly tell you that. Oklahoma fans would certainly tell you that. If I am doing that, if that's my thing, then, I'm not doing a very good job, because the highest ranked guy I have for them at this point, and to be fair, I think it's higher than rivals and just about anybody else. They got to get better there. They've got to improve in-state recruiting. And my final thought, and we'll wrap this thing up and you can close the show. So there are people who dislike me so much, Anwar, that they sit around on Twitter just waiting to get mad at me about something so they can set me on fire on Twitter. This weekend's so Corian Gibson commits to Clemson on Saturday, and I wrote Clemson mid 4-star defensive back Corian Gibson picks Clemson over Texas. I tweeted it out. I thought nothing of it. I look at my mentions though, you're like 20 plus. What's going on in there? So I click on it, and there are Aggies who are like, "What's so mid about Corian Gibson?" Like, they got upset because I labeled him as a mid 4-star running back, and then they were like, "Rivals should fire this guy. He's nothing but a joke and an embarrassment to the university that he covers." And it's like, guys, there are tiers of prospects. He is he's a mid 4-star. Like, what's wrong with you people? What is wrong with somebody who's like, "What do you mean mid? What's so mid?" Like, really? Is it this is the moment of all of the things that I can say or do that elevate your opportunity to like come after me? You think that I somehow insulted a kid? What does that even mean? What would be the insult? He's a mid 4-star. I just can't with people sometimes, Anwar. Sometimes I want to choke somebody, because it's like, what are we doing? What are you mad about?
It's funny you say it. I got a text message yesterday, and I think it was yesterday or Saturday. I feel like it was I forget which day it was. And so anyway, someone goes, "Hey man, have you been checking out, Catch and his controversy stuff that he said?" Now look, I'm dealing with American Airlines. I've got delays. Like, I mean, I'm just trying to get back home.
It literally didn't make its way over to Orangebloods. It was just a Twitter thing where some Aggies got mad at me.
So I read it, and then I read the comments, and I was having trouble, like piecing it all together because I couldn't understand what everyone was up. And I just closed it out because I didn't understand but yeah, they were on full tilt. They were on full tilt. Because then it was like, well, what's a mid? What's a non? And you tried to explain 5.9, 5.8, 5 point, and like that, it was math. No one's going to listen to that. So it was.
Well, now you're just using facts. It's weird. Yeah, so I didn't I'm not even sure what the insult was supposed to be. What is it that, at worst, what do you think I'm saying that, what does that mean? Catch called him a mid 4-star. Like
an average. You're saying like he's an average 4-star. They're equating mid to mean average as opposed to you're saying like rankings wise.
Okay. Well, even if I called him an average 4, it doesn't really make any sense. A 4-star is just a 4-star. You would never actually say someone is an average 4-star. No one in the history of recruiting has ever said those words together. It doesn't make sense. It's not really he's an average 5-star. Well, so he's an average top 25 player in the country. If you say someone's an average 4-star, oh, so he's a national 250 player, huh? I mean, again, wait, give me a couple of days. Surely I will say something that you can get mad at that's more reasonable than really trying too hard. You're trying too hard.
The thing is, Catch, and when someone doesn't like you, it doesn't take much. It does not take much to get someone upset if they don't like you. Like it doesn't, I'll speak for myself. I've been in relationships before where you could just ask a question. Like, hey, have you decided what you want to eat? Well, what the hell you mean about that? Because they don't like you. So,
but it's not that they dislike me. You have to dislike someone a lot to be. If you just kind of dislike somebody, you're not tripping out because they said someone was a mid 4-star. You're like, I'd catch them, but you're not getting upset about it.
Well, I didn't want to say hate you. Because that hate would be a really strong word.
But if
you want to pull back the layers, if you just want to pull back the layers and keep it a buck, there's a lot of Aggie fans that hate the crap out of you.
You know what?
Let's just keep it.
What have I done? What have I ever done?
Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't. Okay. That's another episode of them airing their grievances. So how about this? When we'll celebrate Festivus later this year, we'll just have Aggie fans come on and air their grievances. How about that?
JW says that I should have just said he was a high 4-star, but he wasn't. He's not. That's why I didn't. If he was a high 4-star, I would have called him a high 4-star.
Do you differentiate the mid versus high versus low every time?
Yes, because a high 4-star is a super blue chip. The cutoff line between a super blue chip and a non-super blue chip is the high 4-star ranking. 5 stars and high 4 stars.
So maybe.
And not a single recruiting service, every recruiting service has him rated as a mid 4-star. Everyone.
No, maybe. I don't know, Catch. I don't know what the solution is. Because I can give you solutions.
If you take like 24/7, they're on a 100-point scale. If your rating is a 95, you're in the middle. You're in the middle.
Yeah.
And so like 94, 95, 96 would be like mid 4 stars. Because you're in the middle. That's what mid means. Middle. It's a mid 4 star. And what that means by the implications of it is that he's the national top 70 through 175 player. It's not an insult. To call someone a mid 4 star is to call them a national top 70 to 175, 200-ish level player.
So so here's the deal. So maybe I think I can think this through. Probably because he doesn't go to Texas, then it seems like slander to say that, right? So it would be like, say, man, just got rejected by like a mid 7.5 woman, right? Right? You're like, she's a 7.5, she's a mid. And you'd be like, well, why'd you have to throw out her number? You know, so but she is a 7.5. That's what you would rank her at. So maybe look,
but if she was a 7.5, why would I call her a mid 7.5?
Listen, it's don't get caught up in the I'm just talking in generalities. Just a general conversation.
I'm talking about specific numbers.
I'm talking about maybe they got upset because because he didn't go to Texas, that you felt the need to say he's mid more so than anything else.
I'm just saying, wait an hour. I'll give you a Barbie review on Twitter. You can get mad at that. Why are you getting mad? Like, this is the thing. I understand it. You hate me. So, and you're following me because you want to hate tweet. You want to find the moment where I say something. Have I just not said anything that's pissed people off for so long that they went through withdrawals and Aggies were like, mid, how dare he? And well, the funny thing is when people pointed out like, yo, you're really on the wrong corner. Like, you're being dumb for this. They didn't apologize. They didn't say, they just stopped. They just were like, oh, okay. Like they discontinued the conversation, but it's never like a my bad catch. I'll get you next time.
The odds of getting Aggie fans to like you would be the odds of getting Texas fans to like Billy.
I want to do a show where we invite A&M fans only to come on the show and explain their reasons for hating me.
I ain't going to be on that show.
I want to hear go back. What did I say 15 years ago that you just can't let go of?
They probably have it bookmarked, I'm sure.
Because, like, I think the only Aggie that I don't like is Kyler Murray. He's not even an Aggie. Like, I got nothing against Aggies. I like Billy. If Billy can like me and we can do shows together, then why wouldn't any other Aggie just chill out?
You and Billy have only been cool for the last couple of years.
No, we've always been cool. We just argue from time to time. There's a difference.
Very publicly.
Yeah, but then we'll get each other on the phone and laugh it up.
Yeah. So, all right, that's you brainstorm that. You brainstorm bringing Aggie smoke to you one day.
I'm up for it because it sounds like it would be fun. Like, you just tell me all the things that I've done. It's like, oh, back in the day, you didn't rate Von Miller high enough. Okay, really? So you're mad at me? You only had Luke Jokel ranked as the 5th best player in the state.
What if
fair enough? Hate away.
It sounds like an exercise of futility. It's like, I'm going to say this, I'm going to wrap up. It's like arguing between like two political parties. No side ever really convinces the other side of their point of view. It's just people arguing back and forth.
But you know why you hate the people on the other sides.
So you want to know why Aggie fans hate you?
I want to know, like, what is the thing that you most think about with regards to why you hate me?
You want to be liked by Aggie fans?
No, I want to understand the hate.
So when they tell you why they hate you, are you gonna say, what is it? Are you gonna say, okay, makes sense, thanks for playing?
Yes, actually I will.
Okay.
I mean, it might
because the roast.
It could sound trivial to me, but I'll at least it's documented. Like, okay, you heard me say something on the radio back in 2012, and I get it. Fair enough.
So basically, what we're having is the Jeff Ketchum roast, because that's what this is starting to sound like.
No Longhorn fans, because Longhorn fans will just come in with an 85%. They'll give me a swoops. There it is, or something. I want to know where Aggie fans. I want to know where that hate. I know I'm a smartass, but there has to be something that I was such a smartass about that you remember where it originates from.
Okay, so how about this? How about on Friday we do a K&A, and it's the K&A, perfect. This Friday, everybody gets to come in, and they get to tell you why they don't like you. They get to roast you. They get to ask you questions, because that's a very interactive thing back and forth, right? They can super chat the biggest insults that they want to. So
what's that about? Like, I don't want people to insult me. I want to know why they hate me. That is not the same thing.
Well, this is the same thing. I can tell you why I don't like you by insulting you. So no, the rules are no. I'm going to moderate this. I'm going to moderate this because they should be. They should be allowed to come in. I think the only thing that you shouldn't be allowed to do is curse, and then they could just come in and say, like, Catch, why did you print this? Why did you say this? This is why I don't like you.
Well, that's different than insulting me.
Because it's going to be somewhat insulting.
I don't know that even if I don't agree with your reasons for why you don't like me, that doesn't feel insulting.
It's all how you communicate it.
It sounds like you want to hear people insult me. And look, if that's what you want, I'll give you that. Like, if the whole thing is Catch, honestly, I would enjoy watching people insult you for an hour like it's a comedy roast. I can live with that. But what we were talking about was something slightly different.
Because it's two in the same. And what's going to happen is you're going to open this up and you're going to get roasted. So I'm just saying, let's just skip to the roast and just let them say, and then maybe you understand it. But you want to have a conversation, aka just as back and forth dialogue.
No, I just want. There doesn't even have to be a back and forth necessarily. I just want to know what are the reasons. Like, for instance, when we think about the pink penis that gets shut, that Billy has to deal with. Why does that exist? There's probably a million reasons why, I suppose. But ultimately, he was on the sidelines, like rooting for A&M and cheering against Texas. So on the clip that has been turned into a million different kind of disgusting, not suited for television, little graphics that are made. Like, that's why it happened. There's no video of me ever being at a Texas A&M game where I'm doing anything at all. There's nothing. There's nothing. All I'm saying is there's no historical moment.
You're not applying logic, because if that's the case, I agree with you. But then why did it have to be a pink dildo? Why couldn't it have just been a Band-Aid, right? Why couldn't it have been like any particular thing to shut up somebody, right? It could have been anything that you could have thought of outside of that, but there's no video evidence of Billy having a pink dildo in his mouth. So you're saying one thing, but people just apply their abstract thoughts, and then it could have been totally something different. That's what I'm saying.
It's a fair question that Billy should be able to ask. What did I do that made you so mad that you have to put a penis on top of my face every time my name gets mentioned on the internet? Billy and I should both be able to hear from those that legitimately hate us. Tell me why you hate me. Billy
likes to stir up the hornet's nest just a little bit, though.
Well, and if that's your reason, fair enough. Same with me.
He deserves a pink dildo, though.
I'm not defending the penis thing.
Okay.
Like, I don't like it when it shows up on the site. It's not, it's kind of.
I'm just saying, you're applying logic to like a situation where I think at the end of the day, some people just do it because that's what they do.
I just want to know the dude that got upset because I called a kid a mid 4-star. It was Saturday night, man. It's the summer. You could be doing anything with your life at that point. Go out and see either Barbie or Oppenheimer. Like, it was a weekend. And instead, you're going to come at me. You're going to come at me because I had the audacity to call someone a mid 4-star. This is what happens when there's no football, I suppose.
This is what happens when Texas and A&M are about to renew the rivalry.
Maybe so.
This is what happens. Every little thing is going to be
all right.
Taken out of proportion.
So Friday should be fun. It is going to be the roast.
Are we really doing this?
Well, yeah, I'm not scared. Tom G, by the way, loved your Aggie comment, and also the Maalik comment on Jalen Milroe. Aggie must be pissed. They need to be in your comments.
Oh, they were. They were. Oh, they were. They were definitely. I sat drinking my drink, just watching it. That thing got like 300,000 views. It was very, very good for them. I don't care.
MJ Allen says Aggie's just projecting their pettiness on you. Rule number 1: Aggie doesn't matter. Aces. I mean,
fair enough.
They definitely projected some pettiness at me on Saturday because I say stuff all the time that I recognize could make someone mad at me. That wasn't it. All right, guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel, get notifications. You never know when we're going to do a babyface video. You get notifications, you're gonna know every single time when that happens. For myself, for Blake, for Anwar, we're all going to get some lunch. Do us a solid. Do all those things. Click some buttons. We'll see you tomorrow with the Modcast. Until then, you guys take care.